property from Limerick Council in 2008. Mr Collins, who was Minister of State for Skills and Further Education, made a second Dáil statement on a matter of controversy yesterday afternoon, although he took no questions from opposition TDs.
In hindsight, and given the focus and perception amongst some that has arisen in 2023, some 15 years later, it would have been better had I not participated in the local area committee meeting in January of 2007, even though it is absolutely clear that my wife did not benefit in any way from my attendance at the January 2007 meeting. However, when I did attend, it was my full understanding, and it remains the same today, that I was not participating in a discussion or a decision that in any way contravened the 2001 Local Government Act. No law was broken. I did not participate in any decision that authorised the sale of this land. This could only be done by the full County Council in accordance with the statutory process. This occurred more than 18 months later, when I was no longer a member of Limerick County Council.
Junior Minister Niall Collins, and with me in studio now, People Before Profit TD Paul Murphy, who raised a number of questions yesterday and wanted to put questions to the Minister, and that chance was not availed of because that was the decision of the Business Committee. No questions taken by the Minister. It would have been a kangaroo court, said the Taoiseach.
Yeah, I think that comment by the Taoiseach was quite incredible. I mean, what an attitude to have to basic parliamentary accountability. The idea that a minister coming before the Dáil to answer questions is in some way a kangaroo court is bizarre. You add to that what Micheál Martin said yesterday, using the platform of the Dáil to launch an incredible attack against a media outlet, The Ditch, and in effect warning off the rest of the media, saying don't be following these people down their stories, because they've repeatedly exposed instances of corruption and unethical behaviour by his ministers and have resulted in their resignations. So you have a desperate attempt by the entire government to prevent real accountability in the matter of what Niall Collins did. And I think the reason for that is because it's open and shut. It's black and white. He clearly broke the Code of Conduct for councillors. I think it's very clear he broke the Local Government Act 2001, despite what he says, and they are out to confuse and distract and point away from the essence of what happened here.
But the clear point here is the interpretation of the 2001 Local Government Act, Section 117. The Minister says in hindsight he shouldn't have been at that meeting, but no law was broken because only the full council meeting had the power to decide the sale of the site. Now, you see it differently, but that's a moot point, and it's up to, it's not up to you to decide that, is it?
Well, it's definitely not a moot point. It's a central point.
It's a moot point in that Niall Collins interprets his actions very differently. So who decides?
Well, I think the Dáil should have a right to decide. I think the government should decide.
And that's back to SIPO, isn't it? The Standards in Public Office.
Certainly, I mean, it's clear we're not going to get proper parliamentary accountability. So I am going to make a complaint to SIPO, but I think the case is extremely clear. Unfortunately, that'll take a long time to have a result. I would be very hopeful that it'll be a result of a finding of wrongdoing, a breach of the Code of Conduct. One thing that Niall Collins said that was interesting, actually, was this point that in hindsight he shouldn't have participated in the meeting.
And all three coalition leaders have said the same thing.
But for him to say it is an implicit admission that he knew that his wife had expressed interest in the land when he participated in the decision to put the land up for sale.
No, that's your interpretation of it.
Well, otherwise it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. Why wouldn't he participate?
That's the way it makes sense to you. But he interprets that very differently. But so if it's going to take a long time for this to be decided by SIPO, and if it comes down to an interpretation of the Local Government Act, which you believe has been broken, again, do you have any knowledge of any criminal complaint the Minister may face?
I don't. Let me read from the Code of Conduct, which cites the 2001 Act. Councillors must disclose at a meeting of the local authority or of its committees any pecuniary or other beneficial interest they or a connected person have in or material to any matter with which the local authority is concerned in the discharge of its functions. The councillor must withdraw from the meeting after disclosure and must not vote or take part in any discussion or consideration of the matter. It's really clear. They present it as if this meeting in January 2007 was irrelevant. The land would not have been put up for sale without the decision at this meeting. Niall Collins' wife had a material interest in the land being put up for sale. He didn't disclose that interest. He didn't discharge himself from the meeting.
The legal power to do that was vested in the full council, and the full council could have made a decision. And at that stage, the minister had gone on, and he was no longer a councillor. It was the councillor that made the final decision on the say. It was their legal power.
There's two decisions. There's a decision to put the land up for sale, which he participated in. That's clear. The land then goes up for sale after the meeting.
No, a process starts, which isn't the actual sale.
And then the sale itself happens later. But even the sale itself, if you look at the minutes of the meeting in terms of the council meeting itself in September 2008, the agenda refers back to the decision he participated in. It says the disposal of this site was agreed by the members of the Brough electoral area at the meeting held in January 2007, which he was involved in.
So you will be making a complaint to SIPO. You're not aware of any criminal complaint that may be made. Where does this, because you're clearly dissatisfied with the level of accountability and, answers that you were able to get in the Dáil yesterday, where does this leave? Because there have been promises, haven't there, from government to reform SIPO. Where are those promises? And also in terms of the defamation laws and the impact that has had on the reporting of this story.
I mean, the promises to reform SIPO remain unactioned. People can go and look at the SIPO annual report every single year, and it contains 3 or 4 pages of maybe 30 or 40 recommendations.
We need more reform. We need more powers.
We need more resources. And on almost every single action, it says no progress, no progress, no progress, no progress. And you have to wonder whether a government that I think has lost 4 ministers at this stage due to various scandals, this would have been the 5th, doesn't have an interest in actually reforming the law. And in terms of the defamation law, I mean, again, what happened yesterday, I think, it is quite sinister for a Taoiseach to launch an incredible broadside with a clear underlining implication with no basis, as I understand it, of some sort of involvement of Russian money or something else, to discredit an outlet because they've proved quite effective.
Well, it's no secret that one of the backers of the ditch, Shea Bowes, has an involvement with Russia.
I'm not here to speak for the ditch, but as far as I understand, Shea Bowes has no involvement in the ditch now.
Okay. And the other point that the Taoiseach was making yesterday in the Dáil was about politicians who are facilitating a campaign with a political agenda being run by that website. But
I mean, the idea that, well, no. I mean, yes, I have a political agenda, of course. I'm a socialist. I find that this sort of grubby behaviour by Fianna Fáil councillors looking after their own self-interest and the self-interest of their family is disgusting.
Okay,
yes, I have an interest in exposing that corruption.
Right.
But also the idea that all the other media outlets in the country have no political agenda, I don't know, has Micheál Martin ever read the Sunday Independent? It clearly has an editorial agenda. It has an agenda which is against Sinn Féin. It's an agenda which is against the left. Media outlets do have biases. That is true. But if you look at the Ditch website, they have articles critiquing and exposing Sinn Féin TDs, Sinn Féin officials, as well as government officials.
And we work within the law. A final question to you. You have been subject to protests at your home, directed at your family this week. What does that say to encourage or discourage people about entering politics?
Clearly, it's discouraging. It is, it is a bit of a shocking thing. You look out your window and there's people outside protesting at your family home. It's a shocking thing, I think, for my neighbours who didn't ask for any of this. You know what I mean?
And it wasn't about your politics. It was about your family. It was about your personal choices.
Well, I don't know exactly what it was about. I mean, it was about a whole number of things, I think. I mean, these were far-right protesters. They're identifiable people involved in some of them, at least one of them involved in Ireland First. I think another one likely a member of the Irish Freedom Party. They were carrying placards opposing refugees. They were giving out leaflets opposing our bill to insert the right to housing in the Constitution with kind of a conspiracy theory saying that people's homes are going to be taken, which is obviously complete nonsense. And the point I would make is that these people present themselves as anti-establishment. But if you look at who they attack the left, they attack the ones who are critiquing the government the most. There's people before profit that has done the running in terms of Niall Collins exposing what has happened here. We had a bill this week to introduce rent reductions for ordinary people. And yet we're the ones that they attack. And I think there should be, for anyone who looks in their direction thinking that they're an anti-establishment force, people should question that.
Paul Murphy, TD of People Before Profit, thank you for talking to us on Morning Ireland. It's 28 minutes to 9 and we have the news headlines now from Vivian Traynor.